Dear Lord, we thank you and praise you for all the blessings you have given us. We ask your guidance to choose the best candidate that you put before us. Bless all those in attendance tonight and open their hearts and minds to your direction. Please also bless our main speaker, Simon Grill, for all the work and research he has given this project. May the fruits of his labor be instrumental in helping those individuals that are responsible for our schools being safe, to guide them to do the right thing for our children, our future. Lord, please guide our president to the way you wish our country to go. We know you chose him, and we do support your decision. We pray that the country will come together and unite as never before. Help us get rid of the dissension and go forward with you as our leader. Bless all the people that keep us safe, our military, police, firefighters, first responders. Make our leaders listen to your word and do what's best for our country and not themselves. Make them be servants of the Lord. I know this is a lot to ask you, Lord, but we know you're up to the challenge. We ask all things in your name, Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a great program planned for you. First of all, I do want to apologize for the room. Normally, we're not here, as you know. It was last minute notice. We had to make a change. We will be in our regular room next month. We'll have our regular kitchen set up and so forth. So we apologize for that. Who in here, except for Carol, knows what this week is? Anybody? Anybody? Not me. You? Oh, John, you can quiet too. Anybody? Constitution what? Constitution Week is this week. You're absolutely correct. Monday was Constitution Day. Our Constitution was signed on September 17th. Was it 1787? I think that's what, 200 and some years ago. So happy Constitution Day, everybody. A week. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Now, we are pressed for time. We have a tight schedule, so I cut stuff off our agenda. I'm going to go through a lot of things rather more quickly than I normally would. Let's start out with, oh, by the way, on the Constitution, if you have a pocket Constitution, on the second to last page, you actually will see more detail about the Constitution Week, Constitution Day. And also, if you were here last month, I believe Mike, I'm not sure if Mike's here, but he gave a presentation on this as well, so you might want to check that. Several announcements. First, there is a bus trip rally for the Republic on Wednesday, September 26th. It's a free bus trip, also a free box lunch. There's some known speakers. Let me just see if anyone is interested. See Linda for that. As I said, it's a free bus and a free lunch. Washington, D.C. Also, after the rally itself, after the speakers, you will get a chance to the Capitol. You'll meet with some of the senators and also congressmen. Two requests from Republicans. First is, if you have a location that you can put a 4x8 or a 4x4 sign, I'm going in and out. Are you able to hear me? Okay. A 4x8 or a 4x4 sign, please see Linda, or there may be a sheet going around. Just put your name on there. Someone will contact you. Also, if you're willing to put out road signs, regular campaign candidate signs at any particular location. Also, fill the sheet that's going around, or see Linda. Maybe you might want to adopt a couple miles on a particular highway close to you. That's totally up to you. Again, see Linda. But again, could be a sheet going around that you could sign. Okay. Obviously, we have our election on November 6th, but also the Berks County Patriots, we also have an election in November. And per the bylaws, I need to read the following. The third Thursday in September at our general meeting, the election committee shall announce that nominations will be open from the first day in October to October 31st. Nominations will be accepted in writing, email, or U.S. mail to the chairman of the election committee and posted promptly on the BCP website. It is the responsibility of the nominating entry to ensure that their intent is communicated to the election committee and shall have their name and email available to be displayed on the BCP website. Self-nominations are permitted. Folks, we need your help. I know you heard me say this many times, but we really need your help. There is a few board members doing almost all of the work needed to run DCP. The other members, for various reasons, business commitments, health issues, can do very little. We have some concerns that we need to resolve. Obviously, we need more help. We need to put more people in the seats. I'm really, really disappointed at the turnout tonight for whatever reason. Also, we need to collect more revenue. We do not collect enough at some of these meetings to pay for just the hall here, not counting our regular expenses and our overhead. So I want to tell you, quiet back please. I want to tell you that the BCP board, we have done everything that we can possibly do with what we have to work with. I want to tell you, the future is in your hands. Hopefully, you come and see one or more board members and decide to help us out. Okay, there's been a change in our program. Just make sure I didn't jump around too far. Okay. Up next is our legislative chairman, Rod Miller. He will introduce our first candidate of the evening.
Good evening, folks. Yeah, we have the candidate schedule all this year.
Can't hear you, Ron.
Can you hear me now?
No. No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Anyway, we had all candidates scheduled to speak after our main presentation. However, Senator Bob Mensch has another commitment. I appreciate that he came up here trying to tell us where he stands before that. Is it on? Good. Okay. Anyway, Bob Mensch, Senator Bob Mensch from R34, I think he's in, or 24. He covers a little bit of Berks County, Boyertown area. Anyway, Bob has to leave, so I'm going to allow Bob to circumvent our planned schedule, and Bob can speak first, and then after our main presentation, we'll have the other four candidates for state representatives. So, Senator Mensch, where are you? Hi, Ron.
Good evening. That was 231 years ago today, or Monday, that the Constitution was signed. Okay? It's endured for 231 years. It's under assault right now. And that's why I thought I'd drive up here and talk to you tonight about my candidacy. I'm in the 24th Senate District. Let me tell you a little bit, real brief, and I only have 7 minutes, and I have so much I want to cover. I'm a businessman for 35 years, retired, was close to running for office, ran for the House. I was in for 2 years plus. The Senate seat came open. I decided I was going to run for the Senate. So I've been in a total of 12 years. All right? I hope to have another 4 years to serve you. I take it very seriously. I get up every day worried about where our country is headed and what is it that I need to do to help move the country forward. We do that by helping Pennsylvania move forward. I know some of the issues that are dear to your heart. When I was in the House, there was a guy by the name of Sam Rohrer. You may have heard of him.
Yeah.
And Sam was trying desperately to run a property tax bill. He ran it, and we were able to get it amended, he ran it as an amendment to a bill. Never ran it as the actual bill. I was one of 43 members, and Jim Cox was another, 43 members in the House at that time that voted for that bill. I believe very firmly. I pay a lot of property taxes. I'm like you. I don't like to pay that property tax. 2 years ago in the House, earlier this session, Dave Arnold ran 76. We couldn't get it run as an original bill. We ran it to amend it. I voted for it. That ended up 24-24 tie, if you recall. Mysteriously, one of the Democrats disappeared from the floor. He was a pro 76 vote. Something happened where he just wasn't on the floor. We cast the vote. So the lieutenant governor, out of spite, voted against it, and it failed. It would have failed anyway as a tie. But the lieutenant governor, who won't be there next year, just enjoyed that. He had a big grin on his face. It shows you where some of our friends on the other side of the aisle want to take the country. I am a A+ member with NRA. I've been a member of NRA since, God, I don't know, high school. Okay? I'm a sportsman, so I vote for every one of the sportsman's bills as well. Enjoy a lot of target shooting. I was in the Army Engineers. Ended up my Army time in Reading, on Berks Street. There was a reserve center at that time, and I ended up the last year or 3 in Reading. I'm a father, grandfather, and graduate of several colleges. Won't go through the whole degree thing. And my biggest issues are still the issues we already talked about. Property tax, gun rights. You know, the NRA has a saying, and I think it's absolutely right. To take any right is wrong. If we lose one of the rights, what's to stop the next one? You know, us being here tonight is guaranteed by the Constitution, but it's one of the amendments in the Bill of Rights. We could lose that just as easily. I listen to some of the people, I listen to my opponent on the campaign trail, and you hear this from a lot of the folks on the other side of the aisle. They want to take away the tax breaks that are stimulating the economy. Look at what's happening with jobs. Look what's happening with the economy. They want to take that away because it's wrong. I don't see anything wrong with it. Economic growth is good. It's what made America strong and great. All right? My opponent tells people, she was at an event the other day and she was actually lobbying my brother. She saw the name and she said, "Do you know Bob?" And he said, "That's my brother." She didn't stop. She kept telling him how she wants to raise taxes, all right, and grow government. My brother's as conservative as I am. You know, kind of remarkable. Anyway, so I know where this opponent is coming from. I don't think it's a very good choice for Pennsylvania or for America to want to turn our backs on success simply because somebody doesn't like somebody in the White House. So I really need your help. I need your support. My district in Berks County is Boyertown up to Long Swamp. Includes the likes of Pike District, Rutland, and so forth. Okay, if you're in my district, I didn't bring much material here tonight because I didn't know what to expect. But if you need signs, it's menschforsenate.com. Let me know. Or go to my website, get my cell phone, call me, and we'll get you signs. And we have a couple hundred working right through Berks County right now, I know that. But that's me in a nutshell, all right? I am also in leadership in the Senate. I am the caucus chairman of the majority party in the Senate. So every day that we have session, it's myself and the majority leader that get together to decide what bills are run every day. So if you have a particular favor you want, you can call me. Maybe we can work it into the agenda. And with that, I'll stop and see if you have any questions or comments for me. Anyone?
Back here.
All right, yes ma'am.
Bob, I'd like to know how you stand on life and how urgent is it, do you see a defunding Planned Parenthood in our state?
I am 110% pro-life.
You what?
I am 110% pro-life. There was a bill the other year after the Dr. Gosnell disaster in Philadelphia. It was a rather milquetoast bill being run in the Senate, kind of spanking Gosnell on the wrist. I went and amended that, and it became quite a battle for a long time in the legislature. I amended it first, then Representative Baker, when it got to the House, did an additional amendment to it, made it stronger. But we made abortion clinics have to have the same medical standards as an ambulatory surgical facility. What does that mean?
Amen.
Men, if you've had a prostate test, you've been in an ambulatory surgical facility. If you've had LASIK surgery, you've been there. Now, they told us that they didn't want to do this for women's health reasons. If they really cared about women's health, they would have wanted to upgrade the standard to at least a LASIK surgery facility, right?
Right.
So that's where I come out on pro-life.
May I interrupt there, please?
Yeah,
In the interest of time, we had collectively
yeah.
thoughts in our mind that we wanted to get under the legal. I would ask one question, we were running out of time, but
Yes.
I say, the cost of government in Pennsylvania, the operating cost, full-time employment of the state legislators is the highest in the nation. Gary Knowles has a bill to reduce the size. I don't know what else is in mind. Where do you stand on what we do about the cost of operating?
Two quick comments. First of all, I want to see Knowles' bill run, the sooner the better. The legislature is too large. Secondly, beginning in 2019, Pennsylvania will take the biggest step forward to doing better budgeting because of something called performance-based budgeting, and I'm going to take full credit for that because it's my bill. We designed a process where we will now audit every line item in our budget. We will look at 28 departments, 22 separate tax credit programs that are, in some cases, leading us, but we're going to look at all of those operational characteristics and begin to pair the budget. And now we're going to do it not just with emotion, but we're actually going to have fact and data being developed by the Independent Fiscal Office. By the way, I used to teach graduate school finance, so I know a little bit about it. And I think it's really a good step. Pew Research told us it's the most dramatic change in state budgeting in the United States. So that's where we're going with that.
Okay.
All right? Thank you. I'm sure I'll run out of my time. Thank you. I have to get down to Oaks by 7 o'clock. I don't think I'm going to make it. But God bless you all. Thanks for coming out. Thank you for supporting. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. Thanks. Great question.
One minute recess, folks, while I find my folder. Sorry about that, folks. Our speaker this evening is Attorney Simon Grill. Now, I'm going to read his bio, but really, I'm only going to read part of the bio because it's too long. That's all I'm reading, it's 2 pages. Simon was a law clerk at both the Court of Criminal Defense and has been in private legal practice for about 28 years. He teaches a law of self-defense course for the Pennsylvania Bar Institute and teaches courses on the Pennsylvania Castle Doctrine, Stand Your Ground, Standard Self-Defense, Defense of Others, and 501(7)(c)(4). Simon is also an NRA firearms instructor, NRA instructor for personal protection in the home and personal protection outside the home, and a range safety officer. It goes on and on, folks, but I'm stopping here, okay? Folks, last March, I got an email from a friend that said, Sam, you got to call and get in touch with Simon on a project that he's working on. So I called Simon the next day, and he told me that he was doing research on a program from the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division dated January 8, 2014, regarding the Dear Colleague letter, which he found disturbing. After hearing what Simon had to say, I thought this should at least be explored further. So I contacted several school board members. We then met with Simon the following week. Spent about an hour and a half with Simon. He didn't even scratch the surface, folks. He has hundreds of pages on this, and I really don't know how he's going to cover the subject tonight in the time frame that he has. Now, I found this too disturbing, and that's why we're here this evening, and I think you might as well. What I'm really disappointed in, Linda sent out 169 email invitations to all 18 school districts, to school board members and superintendents. So 169, that's an average of about, what, 9 per school district? What I ask you, is anybody here tonight because of that email invitation? Anybody? Anybody? That's pathetic. When you hear Simon's presentation, you need to ask yourself, should he have been here? So we'll sort of let you decide. Okay, folks, I'm going to welcome, let's all welcome Simon Grill.
I speak kind of loud anyway, so I might not need this. I'm just used to doing that because sometimes you got to get a quote. Make a lot of noise, especially if you can't hear you. John. All right, you can't hear me? All right. As you heard, I'm an attorney. I looked into this. I'm sure most of you know who Nicholas Cruz is, but basically, it's been a long road for Nicholas Cruz. Mr. Cruz has assaulted people in school. He threatened teachers engaged in criminal activity. However, he's never been arrested by law enforcement. He was able to pass a background check. He purchased a semi-automatic rifle. He then massacred 17 people at his high school. This was in Parkland, Florida. All right, can you hear me? All right, up there it is. I have my laser pointer with me, and I found out that this will only work in one direction, it will not go in the other, so I have to go over there, then I need to go backwards. But Nicholas Cruz, as I said, he assaulted people in high school, threatened teachers, engaged in other criminal activity. For some reason, you learn why, he was never arrested, right? He was able to pass background checks. He purchased a semi-automatic rifle. He then massacred 17 people at his high school in Parkland, Florida. All right? How did this come about? All right, well, to find out, we have to know names and we have to know locations. Let's see if it works. All right, I'm going to have to do this the hard way. Hold on. I have to know the names of the places. Former President Barack Obama. You all know who he is. There's another person who was involved in this. His name is Arnie Duncan. He was the superintendent of Chicago Public Schools. and he was the Secretary of Education under President Obama. There's another individual named Robert Runcie. He was the Chief of Staff of Chicago schools. And then during September 2011, was Superintendent of Broward County, Florida Public Schools. That's where the massacre took place. So location, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Broward County, Florida. 17 people killed in a massacre on February 14, 2018. I usually just refer to it as Stoneman Douglas High School. There are so many officials in Broward County that I just couldn't name them all, but we might hear a few of them, but sometimes I just refer to the officials of Broward County. Because I don't have a few hours, I have about 40 to 30 minutes to do this, all right? There's Nicholas Cruz. He was a very young man and massacred 17 people at Stoneman Douglas High School on February 14, 2018. The last person is George Soros. He has a lot of money. And I mean a lot. So if you want to pass legislation, especially if you're a politician and you have a political agenda, you need help. So you need to come up with an academic study, which we call the report. In July 2011, the Breaking School Rules report is released. That school report took over 2 years. They started it just about the time Barack Obama was elected. All right, George Soros' Open Society Foundation paid for the report. Hundreds of people were involved in this. They looked at every school district in Texas. They obtained statistical information. This is an incredible work done by a large number of people, but it had a goal. Oh, I'm on a leash. I don't like, oh, this is terrible.
Simon, try the other way. Just get closer to the mic.
All right, let's see if the other one works. Does the other one work? Yeah. Oh, right. I'm in my own now.
There.
All right, we're now going to start looking at reports. This is the Breaking School Rules report. It is 124 pages, all right? We're just going to go through it so you can see what was involved in putting this together. This took an incredible amount of money to do this. But it's just a couple lines in the report, which will eventually lead to legislation years later, which will allow Cruz to do what he did. All right, I got to sit down. Let's do this. This is an academic report. I've read many of them in my life. People who go to Harvard write very well. What this report does is look at a large number of students and why they were disciplined, what type of discipline they had, and then it looked at the color of their skin. So this just goes on and on and on. And in fact, you get the idea of how long this is. It's got charts, it's got everything. It looks really good. All right, the important thing that happened with this report is, do that, it came up with a finding. And it said, the important finding was on page 46. It's just a few words. African American students were more likely to be disciplined than students of other races. That's what it said. What it was leading to was what's known as implicit racism. You don't even know that you're doing something. The schools may not have even been aware of racism. But what was happening They claim what was happening. They never looked for any other reason why it might happen. They just looked at the numbers in all of Texas's public schools. That's a lot of public schools. And they found out that African American students were disciplined more often than other students of different colors. That's what they found out. All right? So here you have a finding in a 100 and some odd page report. As a politician, what can you do with that? We're going to find out, okay? July 2011. 2 weeks later, President Obama issues an executive order, all right? And the executive order, it's called the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for African Americans on July 26, 2011. And the executive order contains critical language about reducing, this is nice terms of art, disparate use of disciplinary tools against African Americans. In other words, African Americans are discriminated against in public school. That's on page 3 of his executive order. So now, a president, it can be any president, has said, oh my gosh, there's a big problem out there. And you know how I know this? This is because in his executive order, guess what report he refers to? George Soros' report. This is how it's done, folks. You get a report, and then you issue an executive, well, you're not the president, but you issue an executive order, and what happens is you start talking about this finding, this problem that is out there. You don't discuss any other reason for it to occur. You don't do that. You just look at the numbers, all right? Now, I could show you the next step you do is if you want to get legislation passed, you start to get this out into the media, all right? But the first thing you do before you do that is you get it out into the government, all right? So the government had a document called Homeroom, all right? Guess what Homeroom is about? Schools. So all of a sudden, the executive order ends up in Homeroom, where people, educators and other people can discuss it. It gets into other places. It gets into scholarly magazines. It gets into political magazines. But it's getting out there, all right? But we're getting there. All right. Now here's some statistics. In 2011 to 2012, remember these dates and numbers. The academic year, Broward County Public School District had 1,062 school-related arrests, the highest number in Florida. So, since we now know that African Americans are disproportionately affected, guess what that number means? It means that there were more African Americans who were subject to discipline than students of other races. All right? So that's there. All right? So if you believe the report, that's what's happening. And that is what was happening in Broward County. Now in September 2011, Robert Runcie, remember him, was hired by to be the superintendent of Broward County Schools. He knows Arnie Duncan, who is Obama's education secretary. They'd all been buddies in Chicago. They'd all worked in the same places. All right? He makes $335,000 being superintendent. All right? Look at the last line. Within 1 year of Runcie's hiring, student arrest rates were down 66%. Do you realize what a good job he must have done reducing crime? I mean, wow, think about that. Well, he didn't do that. We're now going to find out what he did and how it was done. And ultimately, this is being done in every school, every public school in the United States, because you'll see what happened. It's what we heard about earlier. It's something called the Dear Colleague letter, which we'll get to. All right. In fiscal year 2012, the Department of Education awards Broward County Public School $48.5 million over 5 years. That is known as a carrot. All right? But you've also got to have a stick. All right? So this is the carrot from the federal government. It's over 5 years. So all schools, public schools, in some form or another, get federal money. Now, how did Runcie get all those, how did he clean up crime? How did he do that? Well, he did it. What they had in Broward County was something called the Promise Program. And look at this. Preventing recidivism through opportunities, mentoring, intervention, support, and education. So the bottom line on this is, if this young student right here does something bad in school, let's say he steals money, is he going to be arrested? No, he's not. He gets involved with this, all right? And do you see anything in there that says anything about arresting? Anything about going to court? No. No, you don't. There is a huge manual that was developed regarding this. I don't have the time to show it to you, all right? But people must have received that $48 million. Some of that went into this. I mean, it's interactive. It's got charts. It's got graphs. It's got, somebody paid a lot of money and a lot of people worked on this, and they weren't being paid minimum wage. Now, summary, what the Promise Manual said, in effect, was, this is right there in their statement of purpose. Students of color are disproportionately affected by harsh disciplinary policies, which creates a racial justice crisis and a school-to-prison pipeline. Remember that school-to-prison pipeline. So if you don't have enough time, but there are other studies, and guess which words they use. School-to-prison pipeline. If you arrest someone in school or you subject them to some type of law enforcement, it says you end up in prison. That's what it says, all right? And that was not what was supposed to happen. So, let me get to the manual so you can at least see what this looks like. I gotta sit down, all right? What happens is, and this is difficult to see, if you were arrested for, if you did some vandalism, damage to property at school, if you did vandalism and it was less than $1,000, you think about that, less than $1,000, were you arrested? No. Did the police get involved? No. Guess what happened? You could be mentored, you could be any number of things, but the police didn't get involved. Supposing you, supposing you had drug paraphernalia, hypodermic needle. Did the police get involved? No. Were you arrested? No. Instead, you went for mentoring and other things like that. You could actually write an essay. I'm serious. We're going to get to. I'm serious. I'm serious. You could trespass. You could steal money. If it was less than $300, were you arrested? No. No. Were the police involved? No. No. Okay. But it's going to get even worse. All right? I promise you, it's going to get even worse. So this is how you reduce the number of people who are being arrested. This is how you reduce the disparity. You just stop enforcing the law. And it works. You get 66% reduction. Isn't this wonderful? Crime is cured almost overnight. And I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I think, hey, this is amazing how they're able to do this. So as you probably figured out, the Promise program diverted student lawbreakers from being arrested and convicted to counseling, teen courts, and other similar intervention programs. That's what happened to these people, all right? Now you think, okay, you get caught one time. Everybody knows you can make a mistake. Do you think you could just go through the Promise program one time? No. You could go through the Promise program over and over and over again. In fact, we've heard that the gangs in the area said, okay, we know they have to, Broward County has to submit documents to the federal government showing that they're not having these arrests. So what some of the gangs started doing, and I hope you're ready for this, is they found out when the reporting period ended. So they tended to commit crimes towards the end of the reporting period because they knew the police wouldn't get involved, because if the police got involved, they would have to send that report to Washington, D.C. All right? Hey, they're just being smart, right? I mean, you didn't create this. Somebody in Washington, D.C. did. Now, let's just go through some of these. Vandalism, less than 1,000. Theft, less than 300. Drug paraphernalia, drug use. Assault, you assaulted somebody, there wasn't any harm. Hey, it's no big deal. Go ahead. Yeah. It's no big deal. Okay. It isn't. And this is how you reduce arrests and discipline by 66% in 1 year. All right? But I'll give you a hint. You know, if you reduce it by 66% in 1 year, and the government comes to you next year and says, are these statistics going to go down anymore? All of a sudden, you're in a panic. Wow, my gosh. What can we do? So you've already seen the matrix on this. It's that little thing I showed you there. So here are some of the things they want you to do. Write an essay, counseling, mentoring, social skills lessons. All right? So now I represented a lot of criminals. Some people are first offenders, but others who are dyed in the wool. I just know from some of my clients, social skills, it is a joke. They sit there and it's like, yeah, oh, I'm really sorry about this. And they're figuring out I can go out and they can steal, or they can do more burglary break-ins, they can rob more pharmacies. It's a lifestyle, it's a career, that's what it is. So the other thing was restorative justice. Restorative justice is a very interesting concept. It's a very big political concept. And what it says is that this criminal student right here, all right, has assaulted this poor person back here. All right? Guess what he had to do? And guess what the poor victim here had to do? They had to sit next to each other in a little session where they talked about their feelings. All right? And I'm serious. Really. They had to talk like, oh, why do you do this? I mean, it sounds great on paper when you read it. But you think, there's no way he wants to sit with this idiot here who's just beating him up or something like that. Sorry, I gotta lose you here. This idiot here, and they're going to talk about their feelings and why this happened. But anyway, all you had to do, instead of being arrested, you just had to meet with this guy, right? Did you do restorative? Restorative? Yes, I did restorative. It's amazing. All right.
Couldn't he file charges?
No, you had to participate in the program. No, we're getting to that. We're getting to that. We're getting to this. All right. So what happens to an offender when an offender completes the Promise program? What does it say? Nothing. All right. Come on, let's go out and beat up some more people. All right. We good? So, yeah. All right. You can do that. You could go out and commit this again. Now this is Broward County came up with this program, all right? It is so successful that guess who's hearing about it? Washington, D.C., Arnie Duncan, and Obama. In fact, they have a meeting, and I don't know what happened there, but it must have gone something like this. You're now going to be somebody. This is great. Wow, we want to make this nationwide. Hey, we love this program of yours. So, and you can get in the Promise Program more than one time. You can get in the Progress Program many times. But what did that do? What did it do that you could get in the Promise Program many times? The number of arrests keeps going down. Now, here we are in Washington, D.C. It's my buddy right here. Oh my gosh. Nationwide, there is racial injustice in school. There is a school-to-prison pipeline. We know the words, right? Therefore, the nation must institute a national program to stop racial injustice in the administration and discipline of public schools. They're doing so well in Broward County. Let's make this nationwide. In fact, let's bring this to Berks County. Let's bring this to Philadelphia. Let's bring this to Pittsburgh. And those places got tens of millions of dollars. I don't think Berks County did, but Philadelphia knew how to apply for the grants. Pittsburgh knew how to apply for the grants. I think Pittsburgh was something like 40 million. Now, how many people did they pay? How many jobs did they create to enforce all this stuff? Submitting all the things they had to submit, all the records they had to keep, all the counselors they had to have, all the team court. It's taxpayers paying money for this. And what do they get? You know who we're going to get to eventually. The document that Sam was talking about, the February 8, 2014 Dear Colleague letter. On February 8, 2014, the United States Department of Education through the Department of Justice issued a Dear Colleague letter to all public schools in the United States. What I'm about to read to you now is a pretty accurate description. For a public school administrator to receive a Dear Colleague letter is the equivalent of Moses receiving the 10 Commandments from on high. So I got to use you again. Here's our public school administrator. My God, have you seen the Dear Colleague letter? He says no. Everything stops. Everything stops. You read the Dear Colleague letter. Dear Colleague letters were issued to universities, right, about sexual assault. And we all know what happened with that. Now everybody's getting raped on. So these Dear Colleague letters, they get your attention because they talk about basically always two things: carrots and sticks. All right? I'm going to show you the Dear Colleague letter. We can't read it, but you'll see what they look like. They're very nice, very scholarly. They sound good. I've read these. All right. This is a Dear Colleague letter. It says, Dear Colleague. The moment you're an administrator, you see that word, Dear Colleague, it's Moses. God talking to Moses. Oh, look. Oh my gosh, they've got footnotes, they've got all of this. And guess what report it talks about in here? George Soros's report. This is how it's done, folks. The planning goes back years if you want to do anything. So keep that in mind if you're a Republican. If you want to do something, you've got to get a report, okay? And you can find anybody to do a report. All you've got to do is pay them the money and not look at certain things and look at other things, all right? That's what happened with the breaking school rules. Is there disparate treatment? Yes. Never asked why. He just looked at the numbers. So look, it goes on, and the Department's investigation and enforcement actions under Title IV and Title VI, legal framework. They're now telling the schools, We got you. We can do this. The law is on our side. We're now going to tell you about different treatment. All right? We know that in your school, there must be racial disparities. But they didn't know that. They had a study. That's what they had. Here's the different treatment flow chart. Different treatment has disparate impacts. People who are treated differently can have different things happen to them. Not all of them good. Here's the disparate impact flow chart. Do you realize the court administrators and their staff went through this probably for days at a time? They now give you examples of disparate treatment so that you'll think about this. But we're getting to the good part. Remember, this is the stick, folks. This is what they're going to look at to figure out if you, over there, that school administrator, you're doing something bad. They're going to tell you, here's the information we're going to look at. You better keep good records, school administrators, because we're going to be looking over your shoulders. If you're a school administrator, this scares the daylights out of you, all right? Remedies. Do you know what remedies are? Remedies is a nice way of saying, this is how we're going to fix disparate racial impacts. All right? That's what remedies are. It doesn't say it's punishment. This is my legal brothers talking. Remedies. So let me get out of this. We'll go back here. And I think it's probably going to... I got to start at the beginning. I've never done this before. I must have done something. I don't know what I did. Now, this, as we went over, the February 8th, 2014 Dear Colleague letter cited the Breaking School Rules report. In other words, George Soros. It referred to the school-to-prison pipeline. That's other reports talked about that. So you see how this is getting together? Her report's here. We got some reports here. We've got some studies that were done here. And they're all coming together in the Dear Colleague letter because there's bad things that are happening out there. All right? This was done to police departments. This is how you bring the police departments who are local under national control from Washington, D.C. This is how you bring local schools that are local school boards under national control for Washington, D.C. This is how it's done. Now, this Dear Colleague letter made a finding or a determination. It had to do that. It determined that racial discrimination in school discipline is a real problem. Uh-oh. School administrator, you got a real problem, don't you? Because you have racial discrimination in school discipline. All schools do. So you have a real problem. He's convenient. He's right here. He didn't know this was going to happen. Now, remedies. Remember the remedies? The Dear Colleague letter established remedies for racial discrimination in the enforcement of school discipline. The Department of Justice could obtain the following. Are you ready? Will you voluntarily agree to fix the racial disparities? Oh, he's not doing that. He's not saying that he will agree to what I want as the Department of Justice. So that's a problem. He's not going to do it. He might be saying, well, we don't have any. Oh, no, that's not it. We've determined that it's a problem. All right? Well, you know what? If he doesn't want to do it, voluntarily, just sat here, didn't say anything, right? Now we're going to do consent decrees. Are you going to consent to this? Or we're going to do bad things, all right? But we want to be friends. Oh, we're still not doing it, all right? So the last thing we do is we file a lawsuit against the public school district. In effect, the federal government can take over a school district, and the school district is denied federal money. See, you thought you were making 100 grand a year, right? No, you're not anymore, because you're not getting federal money. 50 grand is now missing, all right? So you're getting, you have no idea. They can come in and in effect do what they want to do through the courts, because they got studies, right? They got to have information. They can then come in. Nobody in their right mind wants to have a lawsuit filed against them if they're a school administrator. So, what do? He agrees. Oh, at last, he's seen the light, everybody. He's seen the light. He's seen the light. If you're all school administrators, you've all seen the light, haven't you? Yes, of course you have. All right? Now, the Dear Colleague letter, as you probably figured out, is a major event, If a school has a disproportionate number of African Americans, persons of color receiving discipline, then the school district is in big trouble. It doesn't look at the impact of, maybe they come from bad families, maybe, who knows? It doesn't look at anything like that. It just looks at numbers. That's what it looks at, all right? Public schools must do something to furnish to the federal government the needed statistics proving the school district is in compliance. What can we do to get our numbers down? What can we do? Well, we could lie. Yes, we could do that. But, wait a minute. What did Broward County do? Wait a minute. They had a promise program. Wait a minute. I've got an idea. Let's institute our own promise. We won't call it that. Let's call it something else. Let's call it diversity and inclusion. Let's call it whatever we want to call it. But we know how to do it because Broward County showed us how to do it. So let's take this miscreant right here, all right? He's been breaking into cars in school. But, I tell you what, you could use some mentoring, couldn't you? See, look at that. He's already agreed to mentoring. That reduces the number of arrests. Let's take this bad guy right here, all right? He's been drug paraphernalia, heroin, things like that. Well, what would you like to do instead of being arrested? Write an essay? Is that good? Oh, mentioning guns in school? Oh, this is getting even better. We now have to send him to teen court. Yeah! Here's how it is. You like drugs, you like this. Are you seriously not going to go into the program? Yeah, of course, you'll go into the program. Well, then, well, wait, you know, hey, guess some people do get arrested. You understand that, don't you? All right. Well, maybe we'll have one person who gets arrested, but you know what? At the school where this happened, there were 37 people that got arrested last year. This year, you know what we were able to do? We got it down to one. One person. And we made an example of that person. They actually went to jail, all right? Ooh. So, yeah, I know. People say that to me already, why they wanted to go. So that means when this person here gets in trouble, she remembers this guy over here. And are you going to agree to go in the program? Yes, all right. So that's pretty much, it's diversion programs. I have nothing wrong with diversion programs, first offenders, things like that. People make mistakes. But now you're going to see how you really get these numbers down, okay? All right, we just went into the students will not be arrested for committing crimes, but will be following the promise-type programs. This county, one said to me, the criminals are walking the halls.
Yeah.
But guess what? Arrests are down. Crime's being solved. All right. So, we're now into 2015. How are we going to keep the numbers of arrests going down? What can we do? We've got to think. What can we do? Are you ready? Well, before, if the theft was less than $300, you got into the program. Now, it's theft of more than $300 will get you into the program. That's good for you. Really, all that money you stole? Whoa, whoa. Yeah, just a couple of years, you would have been in trouble before, but now it's more than fair. Hey, if you steal a motor vehicle, guess what? No mandatory reporting to law enforcement. All right, who wants to be the motor vehicle thief? All right, here we go. You gonna read the program? All right, he knows. Keeps him out of jail. All right. Remember when vandalism was less than $1,000? Guess what it is now? It's more than $1,000. Okay. You know, we've got to get these numbers. We've got to show progress. Hey, extortion and robbery are not mandatorily law enforcement. The Broward County matrix keeps going. This thing's really long. I mean, it's all these crimes and everything. It's just amazing. All right. While Nicholas Cruz in Broward County, he participated in the Promise program, allegedly for assault, threatening teachers, carrying bullets in his backpack, among other offenses. Cruz avoided a criminal record. FBI agent Michael Biasello told Real Clear Investigations, Cruz probably wouldn't have been able to buy a murder weapon if the school had referred him to law enforcement. But he did buy it, didn't he? It's the way it is. Every public school district in America received a Dear Colleague letter. Probably every school district in Berks County has instituted programs similar to the Promise programs. Bearing in mind that I've talked to some people in school boards, they don't know anything about this. They didn't have a clue about any of this, all right? If only one student out of every 10,000 students in Pennsylvania thinks like Cruz and then uses a Promise-type program, there's going to be more Stone and Douglas-type massacres. You just don't know. All right, perhaps the best explanation for Cruz, the explanation of Nicholas Cruz and Harrison Klebold, the Columbine High School murders, is contained in the words of Keith M. Simons. He's a middle school student. He's 13 years old. All right? I'm going to read them to you. He was getting ready to shoot up a school. He doesn't spell very well. I want to leave a lasting impression on the world. And I, Keith M. Simons, also want to leave a lasting impression on the world. I'll look in those scared little bitches' eyes before I kill them. There's now I have followers because I'm so awesome. I know someone will follow me just like I followed Eric Hallis and Dylan Klebold, the Columbine killers. Me and them want close to the same thing. It's going to be fun. They say school shootings are horrible, but they don't think us like me, Eric, and Dylan. I'm going to die doing it. I hate those people. When they interview my parents and ask how they didn't see the signs, they should know it's not them. It's me. And it's because of how I see the world. I hurt and destroy something bigger, but my school's an easy target. This will be bigger than anything this country's ever seen. I've been planning this for a few weeks and thought about it for a few months. I will never be forgotten. I'll be a stain in American history and the Simons history. It's going to be so much fun. They won't expect a thing. So, there's the program. People don't get arrested. This is where we are. All right? Hopefully, Trump and DeVos are able to do something about this. But it's become part of schools now for years. The money, it's going to be very difficult. Look, school board members, they didn't even know they had this. They don't call it the Promise Program, but I can guarantee you, just look on a Reading School District website, they call it something else, all right? Oh, I forget. It's been a while since I looked at it. I bet you, and I know I look at the Wilson School District, look at certain others, they call it something different. They don't have the matrices that Broward has, but they have other things that you can start to see, wait a minute, this looks familiar, all right? It doesn't have all the lines. They didn't spend $750,000 or whatever it was making all this stuff. But when you talk to teachers, criminals walk the halls. That's what they say. All right. Any questions? I know they want me to be quiet, but any questions? Look, I got the red thing. That's it. I have the red thing. I'm done. Now give me 15 minutes if you want to ask any questions. What do you got? Anything? Oh, yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm just making an observation. We have heard that they didn't have any information from the school.
Oh, no, please. No.
That's why we didn't have.
No, she's saying that they didn't have any information from the school or other people to the police. That is absolutely incorrect. There were people who were reporting this guy. He was involved in all sorts of, yeah. Oh, no, well, no, the Peterson, the sheriff who was a coward, right? He knew this guy. He had gotten reports on him. And people knew who he was. They knew this, all right? But he was a statistic. If they would have arrested him, what would have happened? The numbers would have gone up. It could have been somebody else, it could have been, but he was just, they got to keep the numbers down. They got to keep the money coming in, right? And it looks good. There you are. You're Robert Runcie, 66%. Yeah, baby, right, 66%.
Whoops.
Right.
Other way.
Are they giving me the hook? I don't know. Okay.
That's my point. They didn't have records saying what he did wrong because they were.
Oh, but they knew what he was doing wrong. Here's something else that I read about, and I would love to see if this is actually correct. Most schools have closed-circuit TV in them, all right? So, here's my bad guy. He's gonna beat him up, right? He does it in the hallway. It's on closed-circuit TV. How in the world can you get around that? All you gotta do is get the closed-circuit TV, and you go and say, look, this occurred. Hey, you should be arrested. Guess what Stoneman Douglas High School did? They had no. I know about electronic surveillance, right? No, they didn't do that. They had a 30-minute delay. That's supposedly what they did. They had a 30-minute delay. So, this miscreant attacks this poor child here, right? And Michael. Oh my God, Michael, do you see what happened? Look. Get to the camera, right? Just take it off of there. He's going to go in the Promise Program. No one needs to know about this. See, Michael? Yep. He's going to do that. So nobody knows that they did that. But if the evidence is gone, and you've got to report all this to Washington, D.C., I read that this is what happened with the 30-minute delay. What can you do in 30 minutes? You just got to get in there, talk to Michael, right? It's monitor so-and-so, and Michael does what? Presses a button or does what he has to do, and the evidence of whatever the crime was disappears. Okay? Yes, sir. They did, oh look, they did all this sort of things. I mean, you read about this, they did this, they did that. The school is going to be concerned more or less with what's happening on the school, all right? So you're burglarizing the school. That's one of the things you didn't get a referral to the police to. If you burglarize the school, listen, I'm serious about this. Sam's going to get a CD with all the documents on it. You'll spend a month reading them. But it's all in there. You'll read this, you'll go, you're talking about arson. You're talking about all these things. Because once you've reduced it, what do you do then to go further? So does it eventually end up at murder? I don't know. All right? But I know that murder is in the matrix. Okay? All right.
Keep government out of it. The way to do that would be homeschool the children. That's my solve.
Oh, no. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Well, that is where that is now a racially disparate impact. All right? We'll have... We're going to come up with a study, aren't we, that's going to talk about racially disparate impact of homeschool. I'm sorry, that's you can pay for a study. I don't know how much Soros paid for the study, but he got his money's worth, didn't he? He got his money's worth. There's no doubt about it. Open Society Foundation, they even say it right in the report. We want to thank the Open Society Foundation for giving us an award to do this. And you know what an award is? Money. That's what it is. And Open Society, that's George Soros's. If you go to his website, it says Open Society. All right, anybody else?
Over here, Simon.
What if myself as the family and the victim decide to go to the police myself?
Okay. What you have to understand is that you're not the focus anymore. All right? The focus is now on the person who perpetrated the crime. All right? And they perpetrated the crime, and now think about this, put this in your mind. They're being treated disproportionately because of racism, right? So therefore, they count more than somebody else counts. And don't you want this person who did bad things, don't you want them to get back into the society? Don't you want them to do good things? You have to read all this stuff in there. And you'll see that the emphasis is never on the victim. It's, okay, the victim, here he is again. The victim has got to have a meeting with, guess who? Yes, and you're going to talk about, because they have pictures of people sitting around in these groups on chairs like this. I don't know if they're staged or whatever they are, but you know, you're supposed to think this is what goes on. I can tell you, there's many times as a defense attorney, as I've tried to listen, I know you were hurt and everything, but you see, I'd like you to have a meeting with this. It doesn't work. Nobody wants to meet with someone who's raped them. Nobody wants to meet with someone who's beaten them up or broken the windows in their house. Every now and then I would run into that. And you know where the people were from? Wyomissing. Yep, Wyomissing. I don't know why, but that's where they were from. Really.
Is this information given to other outlets such as media, television?
They already know it. They already know this. I'm pretty sure he does. I understand DeVos is trying to do something about this, but I think they rescinded the Dear Colleague letter, is what I think they did. But what does that mean? Supposing the schools are now set up, the schools are now paying all these people to administer these courses. These people want these types of programs to continue. If you're getting $100 grand to be a teen court judge, all right, are you going to say, oh no, hey, we don't need this? No, you're not. This is money that comes from taxpayers, is what it is. And it's going to, for a good purpose, isn't it? To reduce racial disparity, to help poor criminals, people who've done, maybe it's their first offense, maybe it's their 10th, but that's what it's being done for, all right? It creates a vast network of people in the billions of dollars, You have to read, I don't think it's on the disc I'm going to give Sam, it might be, but there's a list of cities, and it's an incredibly long list of money. And we're not talking $20, 40 million here, 50 million there. And you know what? Pretty soon you're talking real money in billions. And that's what it is. Go ahead.
Is it still racism if the perpetrator is white?
Yeah, well, remember what this is. They looked at numbers, all right? They just said, African Americans, let's make this up. African Americans are 15% of the people in the school. In any, will make up the school, all right? But they have 30% of the disciplinary and arrests, all right? Wait a minute. And they said, in effect, they said that must be implicit racism, because that can't be. It should be 15%. If you have 15% African Americans, you should have 15% people who are being disciplined, who are being arrested. It shouldn't be 30. So therefore, something must be going on, all right? And that is implicit racism. In other words, who can I pick on? Who can I pick on? So here's the school administrator. No. Here's the school person who administers discipline. And there's 30% African Americans, right? Well, he must be racist. He just doesn't know it. That's implicit racism. That's what it is. It's actually a concept. It says you don't know you're racist, but you are. So therefore, yeah, I know you're not. But therefore, if you have 30%, but yet there's only 15% African Americans, something's going on. You don't look at other factors. You just look at the numbers. If you looked at other factors, you couldn't institute a program like this, right? And you wouldn't be able to hire all these people. You wouldn't be able to keep all these potential votes. You wouldn't be able to do all this. So, all right, who's next? Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I had a question because I know a lot of high schools have school resource officers that are police officers, you know, in the schools every day. So are they telling our police officers to stand down?
Oh, lovely. All right, this is what happened. This is what happened in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, all right? Here we have 2 police officers right here, all right? Now listen, this is what we got to do. You gotta look the other way, all right? And we're going to have you all sign a document. In fact, what they did in Broward County, the judges signed it. Scott Israel, the sheriff, said, "Yeah, we're going to do this." The school administrator signed the document. I have these documents. They thought this was great. We're going to do this. And remember, they started less than 300 for theft, less than 1,000 for vandalism. All right? We're going to do this. This is how we're going to take these poor people who are racially discriminated against and disciplined, and we're going to help them reintegrate into society. We're going to send them back into the schools. We're going to mentor them. We're going to do all of this. And there's Mr. Cruz. And I'm sure there's plenty of other people. And they're gangs like, this will work. This will work. Yeah, this will work. All right? So, yes, that's what happened. In fact, supposedly Peterson actually got a report of something like that and just never did anything with Cruz. But he was doing something. So how many others did he do it with? I mean, Cruz is the one that floats to the top, all right? But how many others were there? Nobody knows. And you know one of the reasons why you can't know school records are private. That's right. So yes, that's in effect what happened, is they stood down. Now, if somebody's getting shot, well, I would say Peterson, it didn't matter to Peterson. He didn't, even if people were getting shot, he didn't do anything. So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of crimes that it just never did anything with.
One more question.
One more.
You talk about Obama's executive order. Can Trump rescind that?
Oh, yes, any executive order. But see, the executive order was not the key, right? All the executive order did was say, oh my gosh, there's this problem out there, and I think we should do something about it. And this long executive order, right? That says, yes, racial disparity. They used, school to prison pipeline. They used all the key words. And then what happens is, the government say, okay, Obama's behind us. Then they come out with the Dear Colleague letter. That's the real power, right? Because they've been done before. And anybody who's in a school knows they'll take over your school, they'll do consent decrees, they'll sue you, they'll do all things like that. So, what do? You agree to go along with the federal government? You do that? No? He's shaking his head yes. He doesn't want the voters to know, but that's what he's doing. Okay, that was the last one. All right. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Franklin. You gonna say anything? You gonna say anything?
Well, I know that we got part of a program to go, but maybe they can talk to you as well. Folks, Simon just scratched the surface, as I told you. Some of you may have some doubts about what he says here. This is all documented. Some of you may not want to hear what Simon said. This is all documented. So if you need some additional information, can you hear me? Am I coming out?
Yep.
Okay. If you need some additional information, contact us and we'll see that you get it. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you, Simon.
This is the CD that has the documents on it. If you want, I'm sure you're gonna have to pay for it, but I'm giving it, and it doesn't have everything, but it has basically what I used to do this. If you want to, it'll take you a month to read this stuff, but you'll see how it's done from the very beginning, from the report, all the way through the cruise.
Simon, thank you very much. You know, we sent out 169 letters to school boards and superintendents, and nobody came. Why do you think they didn't come? Maybe they already know about this, and they're scared.
They don't want to hear the truth.
Go on their websites, and you'll start to see this. You just got to find the right place in the website. All right?
Folks, I hope that you actually contact someone on your school board. Talk about this program, see what their response might be. But as Simon said, and which we know, they don't necessarily use the names that Simon used. So you might have to do some investigating. Okay, we're going to be moving on to the next part of our program. Before we do that, the Board of Directors wants to express our sympathy for board member Helen McMinn and the loss of her sister. Is Helen still here? She just left. Okay, well, Helen, we express our sympathy. Sorry for your loss. Okay, folks, moving on to the program. Now we're going to go into the candidates night part of the program. My job is done. I'm going to turn this over to our legislative chairman, Rod Miller. Hang up like us. Good luck, buddy.
Can you hear me now? Is it working? No. Can you hear me now?
Testing, testing.
That was okay.
Okay. Okay, fellow Patriots, good evening. Yes, this is the candidate portion tonight. We will hear tonight from the state office candidates. Next month, we will hear from the candidates for federal office, except for, we're going to have a surrogate, I guess, for Scott Wagner. He has a conflict. However, I agreed to allow a surrogate. However, the rest, the congressmen, 5 of them will be here. So there has to be a congressman from your area. And I would encourage you all to attend next month. We went through a lot of gerrymandering on our part. We'll satisfy the gerrymandering on their part, trying to figure out who's in what district, both federal and state. But we finally had it figured out, and based on the final totals, we now know who represents what district. And tonight we have 4 state rep candidates, 2 incumbents, and 2 challengers. in several different districts, and we will allow each of those folks equal amount of time. We're going to break it up into about 10-minute segments where each candidate will get up to 7 minutes to tell us what he wants to tell us, and the last 3 minutes, we're going to tell him what we want him to tell us. So hopefully, between the two of us, we'll get everything on the table. So, okay. We have our flag man, and he's going to flag the candidate at 7 minutes, and if the candidate is finished before 7, I'll take it from there. I have the questions. Because of time, we can't do the traveling mic, just because it'd be time-consuming to run around and hear the questions, and maybe questions that are not pertinent to this group. I put together questions that I know over the months we have brought up before. Of course, property tax, we all know that, but we have a few others. So, when we ask the questions, when the candidate's done, I'm encouraging the candidate to give me the factual answer and hit the point directly, so we can go on to maybe the next question and try to get in to maximize our time. And at this point, I was going to turn it over to my colleague who was going to do what I'm doing now. Unfortunately, at the last minute, she had a problem, a health problem, and I'm going to handle that end as well. So instead of me saying, here's Bunny, it's going to be, as McMahon would say, here's Rodney. So with that in mind, we're going to call our first candidate up here, which is of course, Ryan McKenzie. If Ryan will be the first one to take the mic here. And following Ryan, by the way, we're going to have Vincent come up next. And then the last two, the only two, we have both parties represented on that issue, or that office, will hopefully create some kind of debate between the two that will get some kind of back and forth issue. So with that in mind, Ryan, you got it.
All right. Well, thank you, Rod, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me to speak with you this evening. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for coming out on a late night here at the beginning of September. So what I want to do first is I do want to thank Rod, I want to thank Sam and Linda, all the other volunteers that put events like this together. It's a great opportunity for us to speak to the community, talk about the issues, so let's give them a round of applause. Next, I just want to touch on some values that I think we all share and I hold so dearly that I want to not only continue to carry them along through the end of this term, but hopefully I'll earn your vote and get reelected. Those things are that I believe in limited government. I want to keep our taxes low. I've never voted for a tax or fee increase in my time in the legislature. I am a supporter of the Second Amendment, and I'm also pro-life. Those are the things that guide me in my time in office, and I want to make sure that we uphold those values here in Pennsylvania. So what we've been working on, we have a great team of representatives here in Berks County, our Republican colleagues. We've been pushing back against that liberal agenda for Tom Wolf and the others in Harrisburg. What they want to do, when Tom Wolf came into office, he pushed for the largest tax increase in Pennsylvania history. Not only was that tax increase proposal the largest in Pennsylvania history, it was larger than all other 49 states combined that year. So we in the legislature, we were able to push back on that, and thankfully we fended off those tax increase proposals from Governor Wolf the first year that he was in office. The challenge doesn't stop there, though. They want to take away our Second Amendment rights. They want to do all kinds of things to infringe upon our personal liberties, and we need to make sure that we stand firm as the firewall against those liberal proposals. Personally, I've continued not only to have a voting record that supports what I'm talking about tonight, but I've also advanced my own legislation. So I've been able to successfully get a number of pieces of legislation passed and signed into law since I've been in office. Things like reducing unnecessary regulations, eliminating the inheritance tax for small family businesses. And just recently, this year, I passed legislation that I consider something that I ran on protecting taxpayers. Now, we hear that all the time, and everybody says, like, what does that actually mean when you say protecting taxpayers? Well, this is a prime example of it. all too often we see elected officials steal money. They commit fraud and they steal money from us taxpayers. It's a crime against all of society. And thankfully, I've been able to author and pass legislation, which is in effect this year, which actually closes those loopholes which many tax collectors were walking through every single year. What they would do is they would have checks written out in their own individual name. They would have checks made out to John or Jane Jones. That money would come into the tax collector's office, and they would then turn around and direct that money and deposit it into their own personal John or Jane Doe bank account. And when they went to the bank, nobody knew what was going on. The checks were made out to them personally. They went to the bank. The teller didn't know if it was a tax collection check or a personal check, so they deposited it into their bank. Then to cover up their tracks, what they would do is every year they would be stealing money, so accounts would be short of individual taxpayers, and then the new checks that would come in the next year, they would just run those through the system and pay off those old debts, and then the people the next year were behind. And so basically it was a Ponzi scheme that they were running. They were constantly one step behind, and the more money they stole, they got further and further behind. But they were covering up their tracks, so even auditors wouldn't pick this up for years on end. And every year we would see a couple instances where tax collectors would be finally caught, it would finally catch up to them, that they stole hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars from taxpayers like us. And so finally I closed that loophole. I said no more making checks out to individuals. You can't have bank accounts in your own individual name. And this is something that the FBI cited as the prime loophole that these tax collectors were walking through to commit this type of fraud. So we got that on all of our taxes that are coming out, any tax bills that you get now, you'll see that that option is no longer available. You can't make it out to the individual. You now have to make it out to tax collector for municipality XYZ or municipality XYZ. An obvious fix, I think, that I had to fight for years to get done because individuals want to push back on us and just do business as usual in America. So thankfully we were able to get that done, and again, that's what I consider protecting taxpayers. So, thank you, and I do want to say that we have an important election coming up. In just 7 short weeks, we have an election to decide what direction we want to take Pennsylvania. Do we want to continue down the same path of Tom Wolf's tax and spend liberal policies, or do we want to go a different direction? And I think we have to go a different direction. If we want to grow our economy here in Pennsylvania, if we want to attract residents to our state and keep young people here in our state, we need to change directions. So what I'm seeing is pretty scary for the Democrats. And that party is going hard left. I'm telling you. I mean, in the primaries that happened back in the spring, here in Pennsylvania, this isn't across the country, this is here in Pennsylvania. The Democrats have selected for their lieutenant governor candidate, John Fetterman, who is an avowed Democratic socialist like Bernie Sanders. They have also elected candidates, they threw out members of their own party in their primaries, and elected candidates who were endorsed and supported by the Democrat Socialists of America. I mean, they are going hard left, folks. So we need to make sure that we all get out to vote and push back on that, because we need to hold firm on those values that I talked about earlier. We need to hold strong, fiscally responsible positions, and we need to fight for them, and we need to get out and vote. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Happy to take any questions, but I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank the organizers again. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you.
Now, is this one on? No. Yeah. On? Okay. I'll start with one question. You talked about taxes, saving taxes. I don't think the tax is the problem. It's the spending is the problem, and this cost of government. Your colleague recently gave a talk that said Pennsylvania is one of the 4 states primed for bankruptcy because of cash flow. California and New York are 2 of them. Your colleague, Jerry Knowles, introduced a bill to try to save costs of government, reduction of legislators. I would like to know how you stand on spending and the reduction of government.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great question, Rod. And there are always 2 sides to that equation, and we do need to fight to keep spending under control. here in Harrisburg. Because what we've seen is that spending, before I came to office, in the 8 years during Enver Dale's time, he raised inflation, I think, I'll just ballpark it, but inflation went up maybe 10 or 20%, while spending went up 40% during that same period of time. And so spending is just out of control. And so thankfully, with the Republican legislature in Harrisburg, we've been able to push back on that. And we use as a guiding principle what we call taper. So we keep spending increases to within the rate of inflation and population growth. So as population grows or inflation goes up, your costs naturally do. But we want to keep them in line with those two principles. So if we can hold spending increases to below that, we're actually keeping it under control. So what we're actually proposing is to not only use that as a guiding principle that we use, we push for in our negotiations with the governor, we actually want to put that into legislation. And so there are other states around there, the country that have done that, a taxpayer's bill of rights, and they use that, and it's known as taper in taxpayer's bill of rights. And so we want to put that in place statutorily, so that these controls on spending are there in the long term, not just while we're in control of the majority in Harrisburg, but for whoever comes after us. So that's the way that you can really control spending, and then you start prioritizing within your means. And that's what we need to do a better job of. Okay?
Let's start one more, at least. 1 minute, okay. The pension system was 60 billion in arrears. I understand now from one of your colleagues, it's close to 71 billion. 40% of school property taxes increases go towards the pension problem. Where do you stand on SB 76? Where do you stand on controlling the pension problem?
Sure. So that's a lot to answer in 1 minute, but I will do my best to do that. So first of all, I do support House Bill and Senate Bill 76. I'm a co-sponsor on the House bill in our chamber. And when it comes to pension reform, we do have a massive problem. So just to sum up the problem very quickly for you, we have roughly a $30 billion state budget. It's got $33 billion this year. And as what Rod said, the magnitude of that unfunded liability in our pension plan is more on the order of $60 or $70 billion. So you can see that twice our annual state budget, just in terms of our pension liability. So what we did was about 2 years ago, we took a strong first step. It was called a national improvement by many that reforms the way that pensions are going to be offered for new employees. So that was the first step that we took. It's going to save it's estimated to save about $10 to $12 billion over the long term. It's a very positive first step, but we certainly need to do more to manage that problem going forward and keep it under control. So I'll wrap up by saying I'm getting the flag there, but definitely a big problem that we need to continue to work on. Thank you again.
More questions, but we did okay. Okay, I'd like to call the next candidate up, and Vincent Pagliardo. Vincent is a challenger in this case. The seat is held by Tom Calderon. So we'll now hear what Vincent can do to take that seat.
All right. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Berks Patriots. I'm glad we have a little more than what we had here the last meeting. I've been here for, I think, the last 4 meetings supporting you. Hopefully you're going to be supporting me. I used to be a Reading City Councilman, okay? Everything I did on City Council when I was with Reading was positive. We never raised taxes. We helped with everything. I helped the fire department. I helped the ambulance department. We did so much for the Reading Phillies organization. I moved out of the city, so I couldn't be a Reading City Councilman anymore. So, now that I live in Kenhurst, the seat that I'm running for now belongs to Tom Calderon. That's who I'm running against. He's been there 42 years. Now, imagine like a pond, a body of water that just sits there, stagnant, doing nothing. What happens to that pond? It gets stagnant. Exactly. That's how I feel about people that sit in office for too long. We need term limits. That's one big thing that we need to know. Another thing we need to do is government works for you. Okay, one of the biggest problems we have is our school property taxes. I know I was here when Frank Ryan was up here talking about House Bill 76 and gave a huge 100%, even more. I want to get this through. We need relief. You do not deserve to pay for school property taxes anymore. You have no children in school, but you're paying for everybody else's kids. What? It shouldn't be. So, if I get elected, I'm going to be a big supporter of that. Also, as Ryan said, with the small business and the capital gains, their inheritance tax, you already paid for it. How many times do you need to keep paying for the same thing? Over and over and over. There is so much government waste. There are too many legislators. There is too many elected officials. We need to put a cap on things. Start trimming down. Say, for instance, you're out there, you got a road crew out working on a road. Okay? How long do you think it takes them to set up? You're paying them. How long do you think it takes them to rip down? You're paying them. What's the matter with bidding it out? Okay? Bid it out. Let's get there. Let's get the job done. Stay there until the job is done. 3 shifts. I have to do it with my towing business. I'm there. I go to work Sunday night at 11 o'clock at night. I go back home to my wife at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. I go back in Thursday, I go back in Friday. I don't work Saturday. Saturday I go out and I campaign. Plus Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, I go out and I bang on doors. You have no idea, the people, what they say. They are so tired of this government, the waste that it has. They're tired of career politicians. I'm no politician. I'm really not. I served 4 years on city council. I have no intentions of sitting in the state legislature forever. Go in, do my job. If I'm doing my job properly, I'll stay a little bit. If I'm not doing my job, I'm out. Let somebody else have a shot. You know, it's the way it should be. It isn't a career. So, yeah, that's about what I have to say about that, and I'll open myself to some questions, and you can get back on track with your time.
Well, that's good. Save us a few minutes. Let me ask you one up front, since you're not yet elected. If you get elected, are you going to get into the public pension system, or do you see a change in the system? Politicians are in it, which is initially a concept of Constitution Article 2, Section 8, but where do you stand?
I don't need a public pension system. We have a thriving business, actually 3 of them, and I don't need that. I'm told most of the legislators get a car, they get paid mileage, they get paid for that car, they get paid for the maintenance on the car. You cannot imagine everything, all the money that they get that is wasted. You don't need that. When you go to a job, does your company pay you for your car? No. Really? Why does a public official have to get that? I don't get it. If I don't need their car. I got my own car. I got a car, I got a motorcycle. I plan on riding to Harrisburg every day on my motorcycle because I love riding.
Well, in all fairness to politicians, the Constitution states they're entitled to salary and mileage. Therefore, I guess if they want a car, they can have
If
it.
they want it, they can have it. But guess what? You can vote them out too.
It also says, and no other compensation, whatever, that gets into the pension system. Okay, let's try something else. Where do you stand on the castle doctrine, the right of standing your ground, so to speak? Do you see a need for any more gun legislation? Do we have enough?
More gun legislation? I don't think so. I'm an NRA member. I belong to the mountain fishing game. I have many guns in my house. If there's a war, I want to go to my brother's house because he probably has more than everybody in this room. I don't see any need for any changes in that part.
Okay. Earlier we mentioned holding the line on taxes, and I mentioned the problem is spending. Do you see, from an outsider, and I know if you're in here, you'll see a better view of it. Do you see a way we can reduce the cost of government?
Like I was saying before, you can reduce the cost of government by looking into the ways government deals with negotiations, with contracts, with in-house and out-of-house, as far as like roadways, for instance. There's always a way to streamline things. You don't need to make things take forever. Go there, get the job done, get out. Some people look at it as, when they do a job, hey, we just got this contract. Hey, it's a $40 million contract. Boy, can we get this out? And then they know, oh, well, this job's going to cost another $20 million. They're already into the job. I see it in the body shops. The body shop car goes into a body shop, and real simple, your car goes in to get the front end fixed. You were in an accident. You hit a deer. The insurance company approves this amount of money. Body shop works on it, and guess what? They pull the car apart. Oh, hey, we found some more stuff that's bent. You know, some little things where you can straighten, but no, hey, guess what? We can make some more money. Let's replace those parts. So it's something that doesn't need to be done, but they do it to stretch that dollar out, to get more. Everybody knows they can bleed government. They can't bleed me.
Okay, a little bit of rabbit trail. Okay, right to work. Since you're in the city, and there's an illegal immigration problem, we have one city in Pennsylvania now is a sanctuary city. Whether the state is into that, that might come into your building. Where do you stand on illegal immigration and Pennsylvania subsidies similar to what welfare people might get?
I'm for legal immigration. Okay, there's not a problem with that. Illegal immigration, there's a big problem with. Our President Donald Trump is working on building a wall. The wall needs to be built. It has to be built. This country depends on getting that wall built, because the more that comes in, the more jobs that are taking away from legal citizens. We're giving money to illegals to be here over our veterans. Veterans deserve the money more than an illegal immigrant. That's a no-brainer. Okay, in Reading, I deal with the police officers every day, the sheriff department, the Reading police. I deal with the state police. I talked to a sheriff the other day. We have MS-13 gang members living in East Reading. Okay, they are there. Why do you think there's so many shootings in Reading? When the kids are running around their streets on their little motorcycles and go-karts and mini bikes, the police are told to look the other way because we don't want to get sued. That's wrong. You know, something needs to be done about these gang members. Years ago, we had a gang member task force in the Reading Police, and it needs to be there again, and they need to do something about it.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for allowing me up here.
Okay, now let's try to get a little bit of back and forth going here, and our two candidates for that's the 129th, okay. The incumbent, Tim Cox, and his challenger, Trish Berks. Would they please both come up at the same time? This is the last candidate event of the evening. Consequently, I had these two going last in case we run over, and hopefully we'll have something going here that we don't mind hanging around a while. Would you two folks here first, Trish Berks, would you please come up and have a seat up here, and likewise Tim Cox. Okay, folks, thank you. Again, we've allocated 10 minutes per candidate. What I'm going to do is have 7 minutes for each candidate, and there, somebody with another space could flip point and see which one of the two will go first. Sam, got a point in your pocket? No. Exercise fairness here. Wait a minute. Everyone's failed. Well, does that suit you? Well, there you go. Keep your money. Treasurer, you right over there. Stand or whatever suits you. Treasurer will now go for 7 minutes, and then Jim Cox will get the same 7 minutes. If there's any rebuttals, we'll both give them a chance, and then we'll try to get some questions. You got it.
First, I wanted to thank you for having me here tonight. I want to give you a little bit of my background instead of getting into the politics right away. I was born and raised in Hamburg, Pennsylvania. My grandparents were farmers, and my other set of grandparents owned a general store and a butcher shop down in Driveville, Pennsylvania. My parents were both state workers. My mother worked at the Hamburg Center. My father worked for PennDOT as a mechanic. My background is I graduated from Hamburg High School. I then went on to Kutztown University, where I got my undergraduate and graduate degree in education. I was a teacher. I was a teacher up until, 2008. In 2006, my husband, Reading Police Officer Scott Wertz, was killed in the line of duty. And obviously that turned my world upside down. From there, I was able to stay home to be with our boys and raise them. We have 2 boys. They're now 24 and 19. I recently went back to substitute teaching in the past year and a half. So I substitute teach as my part-time job. And I have a little girl who's 9. The reasons that I'm running, one of them being that when my husband was killed, the community that I resided in then, still reside in now for almost 20 years, was very generous and kind and just very giving. So part of the reason that I wanted to run was to give back to that community. I tell you the story about my husband's God, not for sympathy or pity, but just so you understand where I'm coming from and why I want to run. Another reason that I'm running is because I am tired of the fighting in government between the Republicans and the Democrats. I am running as a Democrat, but that does not mean I'm a leftist liberal and I'm not a rightist conservative. I'm actually more in the middle. Another reason I'm running is because I want to represent all of the people in my district. I want to listen to all of the people in my district and not always vote necessarily what is best for myself or for my party, but I want to work with the other party and vote for what's best for everybody. I'm tired of the fighting and I want to get up there and I want to do that. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe everybody should have the right to bear arms. I'm not looking to take anyone's guns away. I just believe in sensible and responsible gun ownership. That's all. I come from a family of hunters. I come from a family of law enforcement as well. So I'm not looking to take anyone's guns away. I believe in public education, obviously, because I was a teacher. I believe we have a lot of highly qualified teachers out there. I don't believe in, or I should say, I want to get rid of property tax as well. I support House Bill 76. I pay more in taxes than I do on the interest of the loan of my home. So I am all for getting rid of them as well. I believe we need to look at the expenditures of not only the school districts, but also of our government in general. A lot of what Vince said, there's a lot of excessive and unnecessary spending that goes on, and I believe that that's one of the ways to, reduce that is by looking at scrutinizing at what the government and some of the school districts are spending. And that's me.
Thank you. I'll give a little bit of my background as well. I was born and raised in Illinois, just outside Chicago. My parents were both blue-collar workers. My mom worked in a factory. My dad worked for what ultimately became AT&T, Ameritech, Ma Bell, before it got all split up back in the 80s. But both of my parents were part of unions, and so I grew up watching the good and the bad side of unions. And where I first formulated my policy on unions and the direction we would go with them. I think years and years and years ago, there was a plausible reason for unions and the poor working conditions that much of the workforce endured at that time. We have regulation after regulation and law after law nowadays that has built up protections for the worker. And so what my parents experienced is that the unions ultimately ended up being for the perpetuation of the union. My parents did not feel that they were represented, that their best interests were always represented, that it was always the union stewards that were pushing for things and it didn't always benefit the workers. So that began the formulation of my policy on unions and workers and how they should interact with their employers. Ended up going to college in Pensacola, Florida, where I got a Bachelor of Arts in pre-law and went on to law school at Regent University in Virginia Beach. Strangely enough, both of those places have beaches. I didn't go to the beach a whole lot. I'm not a surfer, swimmer, or much of that, so it just turned out that those were the schools I ended up going to. But studied law at Regent University, and my focus is on constitutional law and individual rights and the origin of our laws and the Judeo-Christian origin of those laws in particular. And so that continued to formulate my beliefs and my belief system. I was raised in a Christian family, grew up with parents that took me to church, and the schools I chose and the schools I went to further put those values in my mind and in my heart. And I also learned that there was a good, solid basis for our laws in America. And the laws that we benefit from, the law and order, for instance, there's a basis in that in the Judeo-Christian faith. And, not everyone in this room may not believe the same thing, but we can't deny that there are, that since we in our public schools began to step away from allowing God in the schools, we've moved in a direction that is very dangerous. And when we deny God in the schools, we see things like the shootings and that become more and more prevalent because there's no moral compass on a regular basis. After law school, I worked with the Rutherford Institute. Think of the ACLU, but then the conservative flip side of that. I worked this organization, defended the little boy who wanted to read his Bible during lunch, defended the teacher who wanted to share their faith when a student came up and said, "Why do you act the way you do? Why do you care so much about it?" The teacher shared her faith. She was then disciplined by the school. The Rutherford Institute, where I worked, we defended those types of individuals and a number of others as well. So I worked there for 2 years. Then came up to Pennsylvania and began to work with State Representative Sam Rohr. He introduced me to this little problem called the school property tax. He tasked me at that point with coming up with a possible solution for it. And so working with him and a number of others, I can't take credit for it. Individual by the name of David Baldinger and a good group of other people with him back in 2003, we came up with legislation as a group. We put it out there, Representative Rohr advocated for it. Ultimately, he left office, and David Baldinger and I sat down and we revamped the whole thing. We tried to pull out unnecessary things, we tried to boil it down to brass tacks and just have the legislation be as simple as possible. And so that exercise was probably one of the best things that I've ever gone through and was rewarding, because I really got to get in the mind of the taxpayer through working with David Baldinger and the taxpayer groups that he works with. Something like 89 or 90 taxpayer groups. So we had the input of all those individuals. I believe in government that works from the ground up, and it doesn't work if I'm not listening to people. And so that was a truly rewarding experience for me. And it's how I went into office. I listen. I'm not an expert. I do know a little bit about a lot of things, because after a while you do learn a little bit about a lot of things. However, I am surrounded by a lot of people who know way more than me, and when I do not have the answer to something, or when I don't even know where to look, I have a group of people that I can lean on. I have attorney advisory groups, doctors and nursing advisory groups, accounting advisory groups, veterans advisory people, I interact with all these groups because I don't know all the answers. 1 minute? 1 minute?
You got 1 minute to go. Yeah, 1 minute.
All right, thank you. Little about my positions. I am pro-life. I'm actually placed on the health committee so that pro-life legislation can advance. The speaker specifically traded me and another individual because they were having trouble moving pro-life legislation out of the health committee. They replaced that individual with me. We were able to move the bill to the floor and get it over to the Senate, and became law. And that's been a couple of sessions now. I'm pro-Second Amendment, pro-small government, emphasis on small government, and I believe that economic growth is only possible when the government gets out of your pockets and gets out of the pockets of the business owner, because they're the ones who create the jobs. It's not the government. And my time is up.
Okay, we're trying to cram a few things in here as best we can, but since what put onto the table was your position regarding pro-life, let's get the other position. Where do you stand on pro-life or pro-choice?
I personally could never have an abortion, but as a woman and as the mother of a daughter, I believe in pro-choice. That does not mean I agree with late-term abortions. I don't believe abortions should be a form of birth control or anything like that. But as a woman and as the mother of a daughter, I don't want the government telling me what I can and cannot do with my body.
Not good. Not good.
Another issue that Representative Cox brought up, used his time to say something, so I'll throw it back to you on this. He discussed this in family regarding unions, and I would ask Mr. Cox in a couple of short words before I throw it over to Trish, is the Janice decision, national decision, allowed for all union members, public employee members, to opt out of the union if they so choose. What's your position on right to work regarding private sector unions?
I have been a prime sponsor of the right to work legislation a number of years. After a while, I was asked by junior members if they could be prime sponsors. I allowed that. I still co-sponsor legislation, still very supportive of the right to work. We'll vote for it if we can ever get a governor that would pass it. And I believe the Janus decision was a long time coming, and I certainly looking forward. We've actually got legislation, I believe it's scheduled for Monday or Tuesday of next week, coming out of the Labor and Industry Committee, which I'm on. I'm looking forward to casting the vote, which further solidifies the Janus decision on the state level.
Okay. Ms. Wertz, where do you stand on unions, pro-life, pro-choice, or I should say pro-union, pro-right to work, or whatever?
I have only ever known union. My parents were both union workers, working for the state. I was part of the union as a teacher, and honestly, when my husband was killed in 2006, the union is the one who stepped up and was there for my family. Not the community was not, because they were very generous in giving, but all the behind-the-scenes stuff that needed to be taken care of and done for my family and I, the police union, the FOP, stepped up, and they did that for me. And I do have their endorsement as well. So that's my experience with them.
Okay, can we get another one in first?
Yep, go ahead.
Try to get another one in, okay. The pension system, as defined by Representative Frank Ryan, was up to $71 billion in arrears. Frankly, it's probably more because of management than anything. Economics sure has something to do with it, but to defer the solutions to Wall Street, pay them a lot of money, and they didn't do their job, so now we're stuck. The public pension system is in arrears. The elected officials are in the same system. Where do you stand on the pension system? What can we do to get that under control? Go ahead, I'll let you start with Trish, and then we'll let
However, like Mackenzie said, going forward, there should be definitely some adjustments and things done. I actually was able to stay home with my boys because of Scott's pension. That's what allowed partially for me to stay home. So I live off that pension and will, thankfully. But I do agree that there are some changes that need to be done going forward. Because we definitely, like you said, too much in arrears. I'm not running for the pension. I don't need it. I have a pension otherwise besides my husband's. I'm not running for the money. I don't need that either. I'm running because I want to listen to all my constituents, and I want to work with the other side to get things done.
I have voted for every, I'll call it improvement, and improvements are marginal, as you probably have seen in Harrisburg. I have voted for every pension change. I think 2010 was the first one. Sadly, sometimes you have to vote for incremental change. We pushed for a lot larger changes. I think the changes we made to the system in the last couple of years are the biggest overhaul the pension system has seen. And so I voted for those, advocated for changes. The challenge, as Frank has expressed, is the arrears. Any of the approaches that we've done have never gone enough to try to address the arrears. We allowed school districts to not pay in when times were good, and so that got things lopsided. And but the problem is not going to go away on its own. I agree with Frank. I've talked to him at length about the issue, but I have voted every chance I get and continue to advocate for improvements in the pension system. I want to kind of comment. She's mentioning how she wants to do things differently, wants to represent the community and listen. I've been doing that for 12 years. People who call my office, I've got fantastic staff. They know where to find answers when they don't know where to find them. They contact other people that do, and so we get results for people. My office is about service, and that's the way we structured it. Ultimately, the sad part about Harrisburg is that many times seniority is what needs to happen for good legislation to occur. And I say that because this coming session, I will be chairman. Chairmanships are based on seniority in the House. I will be a chairman. What committee, I'm not sure. Maybe education, might be judiciary, I don't know. But it's through the position of a chairman that you can actually take and advocate and really maneuver legislation through, and you can use the strength of that seniority to get things done. I've had 89 co-sponsors on legislation, Republican and Democrat on the property tax legislation. I've passed bills with over 120 co-sponsors, Republican and Democrat. I know what it's like to work with both sides of the aisle, and if you talk to the people in Harrisburg, you'll see I'm not about partisanship, I'm about getting results. I do have values, I do have principles, and that's what guides my votes.
Okay, I was going to allow each of you a minute to tell us why you should stay in office or be elected. I consider your outline there a lot of reasons why you belong. Would Ms. Berks like to say why we should elect her?
Again, I'm looking to represent all the people in my district. If I don't know something, kind of like what Mr. Houck said, I'm going to go do the research, and I'm going to find out, and I'm going to call constituents. I'm going to find experts. I'm going to work to find the answer so we can get things done as well. I'm just looking to go up there and serve the people, do the right thing. I know maybe you're right, it's different from your right, but that doesn't mean I don't respect your right, and I'm willing to work together and compromise to get things done. So I'm just looking to go up and represent the people. I'm not a politician. I'm not the typical politician. I don't ever intend to be. I want to be a representative that represents the people, not a politician.
Okay, Ms. Candidate and Ms. Incumbent, I think we heard as much as we could during the time allocated. I thank both of you folks for being here this evening, and hopefully we'll learn something about why you belong. just want to lift one party shot for the state legislature. I'm not picking on the shots. I don't know how you voted for or against, but I can tell you this, my pension system, how bad it is. When we threw out Bob Jubileer, he took $193,000 of the money he said he put in at 4% interest, and he walked away with $90,000 a year the rest of his natural life. That's what's wrong with the pension system. Secondly, I did a history of the pension system. I can tell you the legislature voted for a 50% pension increase in their wallet and gave public employees 25%. That big increase was another reason the pension system's in trouble. I throw that out if you want to talk to these folks. That's on my mind. I'm not saying Representative Cox voted for or against, but that's an issue. I'm done. Thank you for your time, folks. I'm back to Sam.
Next month, please bring a friend. We'll have the federal as well as Pennsylvania governor's. Linda's going to wrap the meeting up in prayer. Please stay quiet.
Heavenly Father, as we come to the end of our time together, we thank you for what has been accomplished here today. May the matters discussed serve as a catalyst to move us forward and cause us to advance and seek growth in all areas of our lives. May we leave here recognizing that you are the God of all wisdom and you are willing to lead us forward. This we pray in the name of the Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Linda. And folks, as I said earlier, please contact your school boards and see why they weren't here, you weren't here. Thank you.